Hey, what's going on, SWAC fans? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. Welcome to another edition of the State of the SWAC Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. On this edition, we're going to be breaking down and talking a little bit about some of the key Week 2 matchups that involve SWAC teams. But you know, when I was looking at the schedule for Week 2 for SWAC teams, I got to admit, when I saw this, the first thing that came to my mind is The Price is Right. I think we all remember that show, right? Or we will still watch it to this day. But when I was growing up as a kid, you know, Bob Barker was on the TV. Rest in peace to him. He just recently passed away. And when I was looking at some of these SWAC games, that's the first thing that came to my mind because we all know what the deal is. A lot of these SWAC schools, they're going play these power conference schools, you know, to receive $500,000 or $1 million in cash and prizes. So let's go ahead and run off some of the matchups that are going to take place in Week 2. But before we do that, somebody hit that music. All right, here we go. You have Texas Southern taking on Toledo. You got Bethune-Cookman taking on Savannah State. Alabama State taking on Miles College. Florida A&M taking on South Florida. Alabama A&M taking on Lane College. You got Alcorn taking on Stephen F. Austin. Arkansas Pine Bluff taking on Tennessee State. Prairie View A&M taking on Abilene Christian. And my goodness, Grambling taking on a very angry and frustrated LSU football team. God bless those brothers. But those are the games right there. I call the Price is Right game because you already know what it is. It's the games where schools go get beat to sleep and receive some money for their hard work and dedication. But the game that matters, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are paying attention to, is the Jackson State versus Southern University game, the Boom Box Classic. Look, I understand this matchup. I understand this rivalry because I am indeed an alumni of Jackson State University, the Jackson State University. And throughout my time there, I seen this rivalry, right? I've been in the stands. I've been, on the sidelines. I've seen people going back and forth. I mean, these two universities do not like each other, and they want to do everything that they can to get the victory. Last year, they played each other twice. The first game, Jackson State beat the brakes off Southern by a score of 35-0. Absolutely nothing. Goose egg them boys. But Southern found themselves back in the SWAC championship game, taking on Jackson State, and Jackson State beat them 43-24. Needless to say that Southern University wants some get back. And this is going to be a different team. We seen Jackson State last week take on FAMU. FAMU really did a good job manhandling Jackson State University and showing a lot of people that, Jackson State University is a little bit vulnerable. And Southern University definitely wants to take advantage of this. Now, the keys to matchup to me is what the secondary of Jackson State is going to do with the wide receivers of Southern University. Every single year, you have a bunch of talented wide receivers on Southern's team. I mean, you throw the ball out there, these guys go out there and they catch it. They catch some of these contested catches. They got Chris route running going on, very disciplined team. And also, what are they going to do when it comes to the pass rush? Last week, Jason Brown was ineffective versus what he was in week 0 versus South Carolina State. I mean, he had 22 straight completions. Last week, he was a mere shell of himself. I had to ask the question, will the real Jason Brown please stand up? I mean, I don't know if you're going to throw for 300 or you're going to throw for 30. But I can tell you this, the performance that the offensive line of Jackson State had last week, they might not want to replicate that because we know that Southern University, they roll out pass rushers. They have a really good rotation. They have a bunch of defensive players that can get to your quarterback. And when you have a guy like Jason Brown, who is indeed a stationary target, he is stationary for the most part. He is not trying to make you miss. He is not trying to hurt you with his legs. He's not Lamar Jackson. Nobody will ever make that mistake. But I think what Jackson State needs to do is they need to incorporate a little bit of Zay McDonald. Now, Zay McDonald, he is the RPO quarterback. He is the guy that can move around in the pocket. The problem is he's not as accurate as Jason Brown. So what are you going to do here? I think that they need to incorporate both guys. I mean, kind of similar to what the New Orleans Saints do. You got your starting quarterback, Derek Carr or Drew Brees in the past, and then you sprinkle a little bit of Taysom Hill in there. So I think they need to change it up just a tad bit. I think they need to use Irv Mulligan a little bit more. I think Jackson State needs to understand that they are indeed a running team these days. They got a lot of talented pass catchers. You got Rico Powers out there. He's down the field threat. You have DJ Stevens, who I feel like Jackson State needs to utilize a little bit more, of course. But when I look at Jackson State, I just think the last year's Jackson State team is kind of being a focal point for this year's Jackson State team. But it's a completely different team. I don't think that, they have the spread out tight wide receivers like they had last season. I think they're more of a physical football team, but this could play a huge role in this because we seen last week Southern University was in a defensive struggle versus Alabama State. Now, they didn't get the victory. They lost 14-10, but, I mean, it was a good defensive game. Both teams came and brought their defenses, and that's very unconventional to SWAC football because SWAC football mostly is known for their offensive efficiency. I mean, you had, some really, talented guys out there, really jockeying for position. Demetrius Davis for Alabama State had 180 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. But Harold Blood, it was okay. You know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly what happened when it comes to like some of the decision making. 2 interceptions. That's definitely not what you want. You don't want to go into a game, turning the ball over, getting the ball into the hands of Jackson State. Well, I feel like that is what cost Southern in those 2 games last season. I mean, it was basically 21-0 before you sat down in your seat. So Harold Blood has to make better decisions, and they have to rely on the running game and utilize some of these wide receivers, man. I mean, these guys are really good, talented players. Y'all think about Jalen Howard. You know what I'm saying? This is a very talented guy. You got George Crows Jr. out there, Kobe Washington. I mean, Kendrick Grimes. I mean, you got some really talented wide receivers out there. These guys can get it done. I just think that they need to utilize them more, and Blood definitely needs to make some better decisions. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'm not going to choose this game because if I did, then I'd probably be choosing with my heart, and I'm not going to do that. We try to keep it even keel here. So it should be an interesting game. Both teams, I feel like, need this win. You got TC Taylor, the kind of the tale of two halves when it comes to the coaching, right? First week against South Carolina State, you're the toast of the town. Next week, everybody wondering what the hell happened to Jackson State University. And then you have Southern University, who I feel like they want to get back representing the West. So when I look at this, I think it's going to be a really good game. I think both teams are talented. And I think it's going to be one of those games that whether you're a Southern fan or a Jackson State fan, you're definitely going to enjoy. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about the SWAC matchups today? Not many, just Jackson State and Southern. What do you think about some of these other matchups? Anybody going to pull off an upset? Comment down below, like and share this video. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the SWAC Podcast. Previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. I ask that you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you enjoy the content. Till next time, all I got to say is, it's rough in the SWAC.